We're pretty on six.
They're in the room. Sorry, let me elbow you to death. Turn off my horrific ringer. Running on my personal phone.
What's that nice lid you were wearing?
I get sort of a rundown.
Hanging back on the wall until next year.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the monthly meeting of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board of Directors. We're live at about 9:05. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, Rob.
Yes.
Great. Let's start with introductions. And why don't you get us started there, Commissioner?
Dennis Isaac, El Paso County.
Rob McDonald, PPACG.
Raphael Dominguez, Town Monument.
Jill Gabler, City of Colorado Springs.
I'm Chris Kalklacher from the State Department of Public Health and Environment.
Colonel Deanna Burt, Schriever Air Force Base.
Well, Colonel, I wanted to point out that this is your first meeting with us, and congratulations, I think, on your
I think.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
ascension to our wonderful board here, but maybe I thought maybe take a break and introduce yourself a little further.
Oh, you bet. I'm a 22-year career space operator, so been doing this business for a while. This is my third assignment in Colorado Springs, so it's coming home. As far as coming back to Schriever, my third time, so I'm very familiar with the base and the mission. I was the former TUSOPS GPS commander when I was squadron commander when I was there before. So it's a great place to be. Schriever's grown quite a bit over the years and the times I've been there, so I'm excited to hear what this group does. I had previously come from the Commander's Action Group, working directly for General Hyten at the headquarters, so familiar with the Space Command issues, and prior to that was the 460th Operations Group Commander, so had worked with a group similar to this, the Aurora Defense Council, quite a bit, so know what the community can bring to the base. So I really look forward to working with you guys here and how we can move forward as a community together. So thanks for letting me be here today.
Thanks for coming. We're glad to have you, and I think you'll find that we very much value our relationship with our military installation personnel, and I think these guys will fill you in over the next few months on how it all really works.
Great, thank you.
I'm Colonel Rich Birchfield, representing Brigadier General Shaw for one more day. And he has his change of command this Friday. And Colonel Doug Shess will be taking the helm, which you all get to know very well. Very excited. General Shaw has just done a tremendous job investing in this relationship, as you all know. And we're going to be very sorry to see him go. But we know that Colonel Shess is of the same mindset, so you'll see the continued partnership from Pete. Sure, so thank you.
Good morning, Colonel Brad McDonald, representing Colonel Troy Dunn, our brand new wing commander at the 10th Air Base Wing. So thank you so much for many of you that came out on the 14th of May to watch that change command. Troy's not a stranger to the Colorado Springs area. He's a graduate of the Academy from 1993 and is excited to be back working and developing leaders' character. So thanks for letting us be here.
Good morning, I'm Sasan Dilshad, Region 2 Traffic Engineer, filling in for the Director of Region 2, Ms. Karen Rowe. She has some scheduling conflict, so I'm here to address any issue pertaining to CDOT.
I thought I saw her.
She's having a conference call with headquarters. So coincided at 9 and 10 o'clock time as the conference call.
I'm Rod Chisholm, the Deputy Garrison Commander out at Fort Carson, and sort of representing Major General Gonzalez, our new commander with transition, who's coming home to this area. Looking forward to partnering with the community, and Colonel Joel Hamilton, the Garrison Commander.
Gabe Ortega, City of Fountain.
Neil Levy, City of Woodland Park.
Bill Murray, City of Colorado Springs.
Tyler Stevens, down at Green Mountain Falls.
Norm Steen, Teller County.
Antigo, City of Colorado Springs.
Mark Snyder, Mayor of Maine. Welcome, everyone. So, agenda approval. Rob, did we have any proposed changes to the agenda?
No last-minute changes I'm aware of.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we can jump right to public comment. This is an opportunity for someone to speak to the board about something that's not on today's agenda. Is anybody in the audience wishing to do so? I don't see anybody, so I guess we can move on then. So item 4 is the consent calendar. We have items A, B, and C today. You can take these all in one motion unless somebody wishes to pull one for special consideration. Rob, did you want to talk any about the lift stations? That's something that comes up, kind of just passes by without comments, but
Sure. I think, quick comment, I know Rich is ready to go into in-depth for an hour on lift stations and why you all approve it and the process that moves it forward, but he may come back for another lift station later on this year, so maybe we'll postpone that discussion. This one is, it's been long coming. Everyone agrees it's okay to approve. That's why it's on consent. There's no objections from any of the partners. And they were waiting on an intergovernmental agreement, and they, after almost a year, they now have one. So it's ready to go.
which is one of those many things that we kind of routinely handle here, but it's very important, and I think sometimes it's just worthy of a little bit of call. So
It is. We'll look for a more in-depth one, maybe a controversial one to bring back to the board, and then you can all understand lift stations and the process. But this one's pretty straightforward.
thank you. So with that, what's your pleasure, board, concerning the consent items?
Move to approve 4A, B, C.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Great, thank you. Well, we're right up to Section 5, reports, and should we move down with the idea that Karen may be able to join us, or are you prepared to give the CDOT monthly update?
It's Hassan's memo.
Yeah, but Karen said she would probably be happy to join us as soon as her meeting is over. So that could be 9:30-ish or to 10.
Well, why don't we jump down to 5B then and circle back to 5A in case Ms. Rowe can join us. So, Rob, that does bring us to the Executive Director's report.
I'll just keep going. A few things to highlight, one of which is on your agenda, the Transportation Improvement Program for our new guests that don't know all our acronyms. We certainly don't know all the military acronyms. The TIP is where we articulate all our projects for the next 6 years. Today, we'll have an approval item later. I've spent a lot of time in the last month working on the details of the TIP. A lot of moving parts, a lot of funding categories, but as you'll hear today, I think we're ready for approval of that. The other thing, I just got back from our National Association of Regional Councils meeting in Raleigh yesterday. Interesting note, I was nominated and accepted and was voted in one of the 20 national district reps. It's the Executive Directors Council, and so I represent 6 western states now on the national board. And everything that our National Association does, from transportation to aging services and whatever councils of governments do around the country. The director in Salt Lake City, he's the co-director for this region. So I'm honored to serve in that capacity. They don't give me a stipend or anything, but they'll let me travel with them around the country. So any of those national discussions I'll bring back here for our committees and certainly this board to talk about. But you all are aware of transportation issues, aging issues, and congressional action or inaction. So a lot of common themes in our national discussion. Monday we did have the Secretary of Transportation talk to a small group of us, which was nice to bend his ear about authorization, and he hopes not to get into the 40s for continuing resolutions of the transportation law. So I think it's up to 33 or 37. He wasn't sure. It's like, well, welcome, but he thinks nationally we're on the cusp of getting a new law, but the room that was talking with them was not as optimistic that they'll get it done. We're in a 2-month extension and probably have another one on the horizon. So that's the update from that piece. And one other, I think it's important to note, in our Area Agency on Aging, you approved the budget last month. Part of that budget was a little over $100,000 for regional call center for specialized transportation. And the Pikes Peak RTA will be looking this afternoon, proposal from Mountain Metro Transit, and they're in the audience. I see, yep, there's Craig. So thanks to Craig and his staff. They're bringing in another $100,000 proposed make this regional call center stand up and work. It's been probably 10, 12 years trying to get it stood up. Now it's funded, and I think it'd be really interesting to see how it can work, and we think it'll work pretty well. And so that's worthy of highlighting after 12 years at least. I don't want to go how far back it really was. We keep working with our insurance programs. The Connect for Health Colorado folks have offered us a contract to continue 100% funding to be the navigators for Connect for Health. We're evaluating that contract. We're not sure there's enough money to do what they intend us to do as far as navigation and having people sign up. So we're working the numbers because the money's 65% of what it was last year. And so we're trying to evaluate what that means to us. In our budget, we have it covered, but we don't have a contract yet, and that runs out here in the next month or so. And then finally, interesting in my role with the Pikes Peak RTA, the Rural Transportation Authority, met with folks in Pueblo, City, County, United Way in Pueblo. They are really interested, again, in the Pikes Peak RTA. After 10 years, they are looking for transportation dollars. This is a great model. So they're going to ponder that yet again. So I spent half a day down there talking with them of the history all the way back as far as I can remember. So that's my update.
Well, and congratulations to your position with, what is it, NARC?
NARC.
National
Yeah,
Association
NARC.
of Regional Councils.
Yeah, I'm a NARC now. And so
From Colorado.
yeah, it's
Yeah, that's.
yeah, really good group. And so there's about 300 of us around the country. And so
Well, it's quite an honor. It's nice to see that people around the country recognize what I think we feel here, which is you do a great job of running
Thank you.
all the things we ask you to do here, and it's nice that you got recognized.
take it to a national level. Maybe that's a good thing or
Well,
bad. We'll
it was
see.
with Commissioner Clark ascending to the presidency of NACO, I believe it's called.
Right.
Maybe we'll have a little pull here for a little while anyway. So,
Well, I will ride our coattails if we can, too.
great. Congratulations, well deserved. Okay, Transportation Advisory Committee report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Hello, Jennifer.
Board, Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County, but really the TAC Chair. We had a good meeting. It occurred on May 21st. Had Board of Directors report, just advised the TAC of what happened at your last meeting. We did have presented to us for action the 2016 to 2019 tip that Rob mentioned today. There's been a lot of work that has gone on with that, and we made a unanimous recommendation to this body to approve that, contingent upon a workshop or process that will handle the funding splits. As you know, some of the funding for some of the projects ends up in early years and then end years, so there needs to be some rework on that unless CDOT is able to approve kind of what they are using, which is utilizing the cash flow method. So we were hoping to hear back on that soon, so just to determine if we needed to make some adjustments there. And then what we also understood is that the public comment period was open through, I think, June 8th. And so there was, from our meeting from May 21st to June 8th, we knew that there were some additional public comments that were likely to come in. I have not received anything from PPACG that discusses any significant comments, so TAC would have not voted on anything that has come in since that time. And then we discussed the 2040 Moving Forward Transportation Plan, and that was not quite ready for our review yet, so we tabled that another month, hoping that that would be ready for our review. And then our next meeting is June 18th.
Great. And I appreciate you all delving into this tip issue. It can be a little complicated at times, hard to understand. So I know you guys probably were only working with half the information that you really needed. But I think we have some resolution moving forward. We have received some public comments since you guys last met. So we're going to put some of that before you and perhaps have an amendment pretty soon.
Understood. Thank you.
Any questions for Jennifer? Thank you.
Thank you all.
And now we can speak with our Community Advisory Committee.
Mr. Chairman, members, My name is Al Creeley. I'm the second vice chairman of the committee. That's the official title. I'm also thought of as the third string utility infielder. And it's easy to follow the TAC because we too approved let me go back. We had a discussion about option 2 and option 4 and how all that came about. There were questions. Director McDonald explained that to us. In that, there was a learning process. And the learning process is this is an advisory committee. And it's in our DNA and it's in our title. So, concerning the 2016-2019 TIP, we are recommending, underline recommending, approval of that statement. And everything else, I'll just echo what the Transportation Advisory Committee said. Are there any questions?
Perhaps you'd come out to Manitou Springs and talk to some of our advisors. They
We
need
learned.
that gospel,
We
but-
did learn.
Any questions for Mr. Creeley?
I just want to say I do appreciate the robust way you go at making those recommendations, and I personally, I think I can speak for the board, really value your opinion and your advice.
We love doing it. And
Good.
we just lost a little focus there for a while, but we're back to the advisory business.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much.
So we can go to 5E, the Regional Advisory Council, the RAC. We have any representatives from the RAC here today?
Thought Joe Ruth was going to be here.
Ms. Ruth
not-
is not, maybe she didn't anticipate us moving so quickly through the
Sure.
agenda, so.
And Guy's usually the backup, and I'm the double backup. At least. Utilities, yeah. Fourth. Player to be named later in this regard. Most of it in the memo, they did not have any action. I think they're taking a breather after you approved their 4-year regional plan last month and their budget. They take a well-deserved breather from action items. Most of their items were updates from some of usually they have providers, and you can see the ones listed, Amblecab, Mountain Community Senior Services, and Silver Key. So of the 14 or 15 subcontractors we have, they get a monthly update from 2 or 3 of them. And that continues so they can keep current on what's going on in the community with the money that they recommend and you all approve. And that looks like the extent of their meeting. It was pretty short.
Thank you. And it looks like there is, we're having, Tucker Hart Adams will be down on June 24th. Give a report on aging to the community over at the Library 21C.
That would be
That's open to everyone.
correct.
I think we've had Tucker Hart Adams down here to speak up.
We've had state demographer, but she has been down throughout the community speaking.
Thank you. Any questions for Rob on the RAC report?
Both the RAC and the TAC meet on June 18th.
Yes.
No overlap, I presume?
No.
Okay.
Morning and afternoon.
Okay.
We're good at those meetings.
Sure.
Well, then let's go ahead and call 5F, the Mobility Coordinating Committee. Hello.
Good morning, Board Chair Director. Rob, thank you for acknowledging the progress and milestones on our joint call center. And due to time, you have the reports in front of you. I'm open for any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? It doesn't appear so.
Thank you. Wanted to thank Fort Carson. We did review the gate access. Everything is going very smoothly. Thanks for your sponsorship for all the organizations.
Thank you. So item 5G is AFCURE, Arkansas Fountain Coalition for Urban River Evaluation. Hi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Ginny Johnson with Colorado Springs Utilities Environmental and Permitting Services. AFCURE meets the first Tuesday of each month, so our last meeting was last week. And we're kicking off our resegmentation project, which is a study of stream segments in the watershed. And I brought a picture. It's very colorful to show you. You can pass this around. what we're studying initially is segment 4, which is all the tributaries to Fountain Creek, and you can pass that around if you like. And streams are divided into segments where different water quality standards may apply depending on the uses that need to be protected. And streams that have high water quality are designated as reviewable. If they don't have high water quality, they're designated as use protected. And this matters because if you have a discharge permit to a reviewable stream, your limits may be a lot more stringent. In the last basin hearing, the division proposed that segment 4 be a reviewable segment. And since it's such a huge segment, we felt that we needed to really understand their proposal, which they were basing their proposal on data from 2 very high-quality streams, Bear and Cheyenne Creeks. So there's just not much data from other areas in that segment, which is enormous. It's from north to south, all along the east side of Monument and Fountain Creeks, and most of the southwest side. So at the hearing, the commission directed AFCUR to do this study to determine what was appropriate segmentation. So that's our resegmentation project, and we actually believe that the Water Quality Control Division is going to work with us on this project, which is beneficial because it will help save us some dollars and hopefully lead us in the right direction so that we're successful in the next basin hearing. So we need to get started because the next basin hearing is in 2018, and we have to figure out where we want to do sampling so that we're getting representative data from all these different tributaries and doing it efficiently, and looking at dividing these up into different hydrologic units, different micro watersheds. So as you can imagine, a stream like Sand Creek or Kettle Creek or Douglas Creek are very different than Bear and Cheyenne Creek. So we're looking at starting that data collection effort. So that's exciting because I'm a data junkie. So and another topic that we've been discussing is integrated planning, which is a collaborative approach to resolving water quality problems in an area or watershed. This was originally a concept that was developed by EPA for areas where there are combined sewer overflows. It would involve a variety of entities such as dischargers, stormwater developers, transportation, et cetera. Denver Metro has outlined such an approach to address nutrient issues in their area. Currently, the dischargers in AFCUR are going to continue to focus on the Regulation 85 or effluent limitations regulations, and start to identify areas where nutrient concentrations are the highest, and hopefully integrated planning, which is sort of something, the concept that's out there with the Greenway District and just lots of different things that are going on right now, maybe might all come together and become a big plan. We also talked about our data housing efforts. There is an online access to, it's called the Data Sharing Network, and when we are all storing our nutrient data in this online effort. We do get charged a fee for the representatives from the Data Sharing Network to actually review our data and then dump it into this online data housing area. So we discussed adding our resegmentation data to this data housing effort. We also talked about the budget for next year, since most of us are planning and have to have our budgets in for next year and future projects. And then the 303D hearing is the list of impaired waters, and that hearing is coming up in December of this year, and we are planning to all work on that collaboratively as well. And we also have a variety of water quality work groups that a lot of us participate in. The most active one right now is the basic standards hearing, which is the state's, the basic standards that are for the entire state. And those are the standards that filter down into each basin. So it's a pretty major hearing, and we have a variety of work groups that address issues that are of concern. And right now, the major issues are temperature and nutrients. So we also have what's called the Colorado Monitoring Framework, and it's a group that has kind of come together to discuss and address issues of actual implementation of the basic standards into reality. And sometimes reality is different than what the state thought it would be. And that's all I have. Rich is going to come out and talk to you about the waters of the U.S. issues and EPA's final version of that.
Well, thank you.
Any questions?
Anybody? Any?
Kind of do. Data is very useful in making decisions. So what's the decision, what do we hope to accomplish with all this data?
To class for the resegmentation effort, just to make sure that the streams are classified as far as the type of quality that they contain. It's a way to identify high-quality streams as opposed to moderate quality streams. The main stem of Fountain Creek is actually classified as reviewable, which means that any discharges to that stream have to be reviewed and scrutinized at a much higher level, and limitations in those permits would be more stringent than to a use-protected stream. So there's a 12-parameter test. So they compare the data to the 12 parameters, and if it exceeds the standards for those parameters, then it remains use-protected. If it's impaired, we work on those issues, but they're not necessarily impaired, but it just means that if you are doing development or obtaining a discharge permit to a use-protected stream, it's not quite as stringent of a permit. And we just want to make sure we classify the streams with respect to their actual water quality and not clumping them all together based on a couple of streams.
Thanks.
Thank you for that lay explanation for those of us who are not as well versed in water quality as we could be.
Hello, Rich.
Hello. I will be brief. I passed out kind of a summary of the waters of the U.S. Rule based upon kind of the original comments that we made in a letter dated September 5th, 2014 to the EPA. Those comments are in italics, and then kind of how the EPA responded to those comments. They did not respond directly to our comments, of course, but kind of what the final rule said regarding the original comments that we made, and those responses are in italics. I also put the website for a analysis that NACO did, a really good analysis comparing the proposed rule with the final rule. I'll be talking more about this at the next board meeting, but I just wanted to go ahead and pass this out, and we'll go ahead and send this out electronically to folks too. But again, I'll be talking more about this at the next meeting.
Real quick question.
Sure.
So there's 3 categories now, and the third one being the case-by-case analysis. Who makes those classifications?
The EPA, if the EPA kind of determines kind of what's considered a water of the U.S., and with regards to the first classification, the ones that are automatically classified as waters of the U.S., most of those are actually, they're prairie dog holes, there's kind of wetlands, there's playas, but they're all located in other states. So there's some, based upon some comments that certain groups made, there was some concessions as far as some areas that were automatically classified as waters of the U.S., but most of those, pretty much all of those, fall outside of Colorado.
Andy?
Sure.
Just a technical question. When they say
if waters are, if a tributary is ephemeral,
Right.
what does that mean?
Ephemeral means that it doesn't flow. There's actually ephemeral, intermittent, and perennial streams. An example of a perennial stream, of course, would be Fountain Creek and Monument Creek. An example of an intermittent stream would be a stream that flows maybe 1 to 2 months out of the year. It just flows in after a rainstorm, so it doesn't have flow year-round. And ephemeral streams are streams that are pretty much always dry, except in case of a kind of extreme storm event.
So they are going to regulate storm-only streams.
Well, the catch is that some intermittent and ephemeral streams will not be classified as waters of the U.S., but then there's specific criteria that they're using, and if it meets that criteria, then it will be classified as waters of the U.S. So those streams aren't automatically exempted from being classified as waters of the U.S. There's kind of an evaluation done based upon if there's it looks like there's a stream bed, a high water mark, and there's one other criteria that's used. It's really going to kind of confuse issues because lots of times you'll look at a stream and kind of what one person might see as a bed might not be a bed to another one, or the same goes for a high water mark. So there's going to be some growing pains with this rule.
I would say growing pains is one way of phrasing it. The other part that caught my attention was the stormwater features and wastewater, and I'm going, that's I don't know what they said after reading it several times.
Yeah, and I talked to some of the stormwater folks here that manage the Phase 1 and Phase 2 permits, and they don't think this rule will have that much of an impact. Most of the stormwater structures are in dry areas, but there still are some in-stream detention stormwater areas that might be affected. Certainly kind of more of the stormwater areas that go in the future by developers and whatnot will probably be in dry areas. But again, that's another section of the rule where there's some confusion and ambiguity as far as what is considered in a wet area. I don't even think it says it kind of avoids making a decision, as it makes a determination about stormwater facilities in dry areas, but not really wet areas. So
It's there's a lot of stuff here yet to digest, and I can't quite figure out what the impact on the utilities,
right,
movement of water back and forth will be. A deep subject, if you pardon the expression, and
Sure.
I appreciate you diving into
Sure,
it.
no problem.
And as you said, Rich, this is kind of a first look for us, and we'll take
Right,
this up next
and
month.
I would encourage folks to go to the NACO website. They kind of looked at kind of all the different aspects and have a chart between the proposed rule and the final rule and kind of the analysis of the changes.
And that link is right in the
Right,
of the first paragraph.
exactly.
Real quick, Rich. Interested by the comment by EPA in the response to the final rule, economic harm without yielding environmental benefit. I'm wondering if the Waters of us contemplates a cost benefit or simply measuring cost only, and any cost is too high.
My understanding is when the EPA kind of does an impact analysis, they cannot use cost in
harm benefit, maybe to use
making
those
those decisions. What's
harm benefit? I mean, is harm offset by benefit, or is it simply measuring harm alone?
it's measuring measuring the harm, and it's measuring the benefit that's gained from the harm, but it's not measured as far as a economic output. So there's not like a benefit cost analysis, that's
My question.
that's done. No.
Okay, we'll talk more next month.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Wow.
Well, we've done all we can to kind of slow things up and give Karen a chance to rejoin us. But I'm trying to, Rob, do you have any recommendations here? Shall we jump back up to the CDOT monthly update, or?
I know Sasan had a memo for you, and I didn't know if you wanted to cover State Highway 94 as an update. That'll buy your boss a few more minutes.
No, I just got the word that Karen will not be able to make it for the rest of the afternoon, rest of the today, and she has sent me a quick summary of what she wanted to cover for today's meeting. I'll be happy to address those and go over 94 as well. Well, first item she outlined was that we would like to thank the participation and turnout of all the board members or those who participated on May 26th and 27th to our Simron open house and groundbreaking. We do appreciate your interest and support in this project, and we anticipate a successful project coming forth for us. The second item she talked about, we have CDOT has been visiting Green Mountain Falls Board of Trustee last week, and we went over the State Highway 24 closure, and as far as the protocol associated with that, and we continue cleaning out the debris from that area west of Cascade. I believe it's called Point C. Then the item number 3, she said that we do realize there are a lot of potholes out there, and obviously it's a concern for all. And our maintenance forces are continuously trying to keep up with maintaining those potholes, but obviously the weather permitting is the issue there, and they're trying to get in between those good weather time that allows for them to effectively put those maintenance work at work and fill those potholes. But this upcoming week, that is becoming the very high priority task for all maintenance courses to focus on that particular task. And the plan is to address the potholes out there in Manitou Avenue, US 24, I-25, US 85, and we have planned to rotomill the I-25 south of Academy in the bad areas next week and then pave them back. Maintenance forces have a special kind of a machinery device that's called zipper, and it will do a lot more effective work than just basically hand filling and hand pouring. So this work will be happening on I-25 next week if weather permits. Item number 4, she said we have shortlisted 3 firms for our US 24 PEL study, which is a environmental linkage study to identify the remedies or work needs to be done on US 24, and that should come to a conclusion shortly. And then last but not least, we are very sad to see one of my partners, Mr. Doug Lawler, who is a North Program engineer, has decided to give it up with CDOT. I'm sure we're going to cross paths with him in transportation world within next few months or years. But yes, Doug has decided to retire, and his last day with CDOT is on June 29th. Farewell, Doug. And then I sent an email through Ms. Karen Rowe to this board regarding the study that we did for State Highway 94. If you have the report, if you read it, you have any concern, question, please ask me a specific question, or if you want me to give a brief summary of what that was about, I'll be happy to do that either way.
A brief summary would be.
Okay. Well, authorities from the Air Force Base addressed some concern regarding some fatalities that had occurred on that stretch of a roadway that begins from mile marker .55 in Colorado Springs all the way to 17.5 in Callahan. And we decided to go ahead and do a comprehensive report to identify what can we do to improve safety value within that area. And through the investigation that we did, analyzing number of all the accidents within the 5-year period prior to June 30th to going back to January of 2009, we concluded that the nature of accidents are such that they're not indicating any glaring pattern that we can identify via a project on the State Highway 94. But that does not mean that we cannot improve safety value by collaboratively putting our effort both in El Paso County and Schriever Air Force as well as CDOT. A number of items have been identified that many folks volunteer to come in and put their share as far as remedies, and we can go over those. El Paso County informed us that basically they do have a project, construction project that will begin in August of this year, and that would be improving the State Highway 94 intersection with Mark Shuffle, actually the Mark Shuffle portion of that. The most glaring two intersections that were identified in our report were the Mark Shuffle and Curtis Way.
Yep.
And those two intersections, basically, even though there's a lot of concentrated accidents, but they were very evenly distributed in all four legs. Therefore, there weren't any specific one item, like, for example, typically most of the accidents are rear-end accidents, and the remedies associated with that is to install a advanced beacon, flashing beacon in the head of the intersection, so for traveling public to understand that you're not going to make that green light there. It's about to turn to red and prepare to stop. Those already have those facilities already have those remedies equipped with. So what we did, however, find out that since we already did in a study in 2009, and since then till now, we have already gained 17% reduction in number of accidents in that corridor alone. But with number of additional immediate remedies, we think that we can add more value of safety. And those are, again, with the assistance from the Colonel Lickery, if I'm saying his name right, agreed that they're going to go ahead and stagger their staff's arrival and departure from the base to in 7 different times, both based on the codes of their zip code of their residences, as well as arrival and departure. So that will help the congestion, because many of the accidents prove to be due to the congestion and during those peak hour time, arrival to the base and leaving the base. And that should help a great deal. Also, Miss
Peggy Littleton?
Littleton, yes, Miss Littleton, and the other lady who did not make it that day, they both volunteered to start a effort that we call it saturation effort, as far as trying to introduce more law enforcement to that area, to come up with some sort of a order for those who are not in compliance with the rules of the road. And then obviously the final effort was for us to go ahead and increase our maintenance effort, both for sanding and snow plowing on those adverse condition days, because there were some accidents related to icy roads and snow condition. So, as well as the final effort was to initiate a campaign of public awareness as far as raising the people's awareness regarding rules of the road as traffic rules, and that is something that we also have some material that I have prepared and I have suggested to all the authorities, both in base as well as county, to distribute that among their staff and folks who can review and become more, aware of the safety of themselves and others on that facility that use that facility. So with those number of efforts, I think we should be able to gain more safety in that area. And obviously additional signs for some radar signs that says your speed is such, but that only will be effective after that week of the saturation law enforcement, because then people will realize that there are people watching them.
Well, it sounds like a real collaborative effort between
Yes, it
all
is.
the principals and pulling together something. It's not the first time I've envied that military command structure where you can just tell people, you'll arrive at work at 6, you're at 6:30. Not a luxury we have in the civilian world. And I certainly have seen how those flashing lights ahead of a stoplight work well in Teller County. Norm, I don't know if you guys are happy with that. It takes a little getting used to, but, so especially a limited site on a highway like that, it really is helpful to know that you're probably going to have to stop. Yes, Andy?
Yeah, I was going to say a little of the same thing, up and down Powers, they seem to work very well.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the particular intersection in question, and I go through there fairly often, and I think that would be a tremendous thing to add to.
Yeah. Well, one of the other the finding that we found through that study was that majority of those accidents were basically due to having numerous access to the highway, private driveways and accesses without the proper auxiliary lanes. Therefore, people who are in a rush on a through lane want to make that continuous flow, they will have to come to a halt because somebody ahead of them wants to make a left turn. And those are most predominantly the number of accidents via rear-end accidents.
And thank you for recognizing Doug Lawler.
Absolutely.
I was going to bring him up here
He is
and
my
roast
partner,
him
and
a little bit.
we'll miss him a lot, yes.
If I might, I would just like to say thank you for all the work by the team to look at that. I got briefed on this, and having been stationed at Schriever 3 times now, the road is definitely improved from when I was a captain in 1995 at Schriever versus what it looks like today. So I think the city's done a great job of improving the road. I think some things that are still I'm concerned about. I agree the Garbage Hill is the worst part of this when it comes from a sanding and ice. It's because it's in a shadowed area. One side of the road may be great, and the downhill side of it may be pure ice, and it becomes a skating rink for the driver. So that's really what we're talking about when we talk about the road and taking care of the road. That's probably the worst part of the road. Number two, I think you will all recall the 2 airmen that we most recently lost out there was due to a couch in the middle of the road. Yes. So my other question that I don't see in this report that I'm hoping you can help me address is, what is the responsibility of the city's garbage dump and any kind of, flow on that road? If people are bringing things to and from the garbage dump and something falls off their truck per se, whose responsibility is that, or how do we police that, or deal with that? Because I think in that situation, it was a low-light scenario. The 2 individuals were coming to work first thing in the morning, and the couch was in the middle of the road. They swerved to miss the couch, and they head on with someone else. And both, unfortunately, perished. So, again, I don't see that in the discussion here, and I think that's some of the concern, too, is the debris that's on the road due to the trash dump being right there as well.
A quick correction. First, this is the state highway. I'm representing the state, so it's not the city. But the site that you're referring to as a dump, the city dump, it's a location there that is downhill from that crest of that hill, which does not get enough sun, or for whatever reason there is a more lengthier icy condition there than other parts of the road. We intend to put additional sign for a permanent sign saying that icy road ahead when adverse weather are present. And as far as patrolling the segment there, we do have a patrol of 3-man crew who address the patrolling of that roadway as far as that 10-mile stretch. Whether they can immediately address any debris falling from any of the dump trucks and get that out of the way prior to causing any unsafe condition for our traveling public, it is just coincident. I don't know how to respond to that piece, but I know they're very diligent in their addressing those roadway. I've spoken personally with their supervisor as far as asking them for increased attention of maintenance to that stretch of a roadway, both in the adverse condition as well as utilizing our permanent VMS board, and also bring some portable VMS board. Those are the most effective signs that draws your attention at the time that there is something happening there. So we are going to go ahead and having some concerted effort with our TOC in Denver to post some signs on those VMS boards, as well as strategically putting some portable VMS boards where we think potentially by that garbage hill to get the attention of our driver that there are potential adverse condition ahead of them.
So I guess maybe let me ask it a different way. If I had a mattress in the middle of Powers Road, whose responsibility is it to move that mattress out of the way for the safety of all the drivers on Powers?
Segment that belong to state, that would be CDOT's responsibility,
Okay.
CDOT maintenance.
So the difference here is this is a state highway versus
City street.
Right, okay.
But it is a state highway. Our patrolmen are responsible for removal of those type of debris, but it's the timing, and 3 men for the entire patrol is basically what we have assigned for that roadway.
And I'm definitely interested in opportunities for us to team and work to keep debris off of that road. I know some people can, if you will, adopt a road and do cleanups and do things. The base is very interested in doing those kinds of things. So if there's times of year that CDOT would normally do that around the city, or we could get into any kind of rotation with that, what I am concerned about, again, is us going out and doing something on our own, and it's counter to what you're doing. And if we were told, or someone told me there was a mattress or something in the middle of 94, I would be trying to get guys out there to get it off the road as quickly as possible. But again, making sure we're not stepping across our boundaries from a legal perspective and doing things that we're not supposed to do, and there's someone else who's supposed to do it. So I'm just trying to learn whose responsibilities are what, so we don't get
I'll be happy
into
to
trouble for
exchange
that.
some information with you so we
Great.
can get the right people into the equation. But yes, absolutely. I am so glad to hear that the cooperative effort is underway. And Colonel Licuri suggested that there are potentially some radar things that says your speed is such that you may have. Those would be very effective. At this time, I don't have any of those to implement at this quarter, but I am intending to set some budget aside for next fiscal years is from my program to see if I can identify enough money for putting a couple of signs out there. Those are one of the most effective signs, especially after that saturation effort of law enforcement comes and passes by. People are much more responsive to that type of treatment than anything else. So obviously, working together, if you guys have those signs, we would definitely like to work with you to strategically locate those where they need to be, but not 24/7. That becomes part of the landscape of a roadway, and people know that it's not going to be as effective. So yeah, absolutely. Let's join forces and work as much as we can to gain more safety.
You bet, thank you.
You bet.
Actually, I'm going to go out on a limb here and speak for all the public entities, but I think safety trumps ownership anytime when it comes to public roadways and right-of-ways. So if there is a mattress in the road, and I've seen that, regardless of whose road it is, we appreciate it whenever anybody will stop and get it off the road, and then we'll get out later and get it picked up out of the ditch, off the right-of-way.
The only thing I would add to that, please, let's talk about the proper steps of doing that, because we don't want to add additional problem to trying to do a good deed and then getting more problem introduced to the area. There are protocols for that.
Yeah, I would, second the comments here, get it done first, but just want to point out that the dump is not a city dump. It's a private entity, it's a private company. And that whole area is well outside of city limits. So there's, as much as we'd like to help on that, it's well outside of any place we can even respond to.
So just to reiterate, oh, sorry.
Just one quick question. Colonel, does the base know who to contact for debris in the road?
I don't know. I'll ask that question, but I would hope we do, but I don't know for sure.
Because that's often the problem, is nobody knows who to contact.
Yeah. Well, through our collaborative effort that we were having with El Paso County and Shiver Air Force, I would like to recognize El Paso County's effort as far as volunteering to join forces with CDOT maintenance, and they have a software called Ready Ops that they really record everything that they do and report to others. So watching each other's is back, and I think Jennifer can tell more on that. So I would allow for Jennifer to elaborate further on that item.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County. I just wanted to thank everybody. I think as a region we continue to work together on all these issues very well and collaborate on that. But also I just wanted to mention our yard is not so far away from that, and so I'm assured that, if we are called on to assist to try and move something immediately, and we have in the past, that since the county forces are right there, we would coordinate that with the state and make sure that occurs. So I think, of course, the first call usually goes to the state, but we always coordinate that. So I just offer that as well, 520-6460. That's our main dispatch number, so if that call comes in directly to us, we will also coordinate that with the state.
And Jennifer?
That line is manned 24/7, so you won't end up in a recording.
Correct. It is.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, for drilling down on that. All that talk, I didn't know we didn't have an exact number or a solution there, so thank you. Anybody else? Councilman?
Question. These are momentary issues. Guy takes a turn, drops off. I mean, it could be spaces of minutes. But I'm quite familiar with cautionary signs, trucks entering the highway, a temporary sign of caution, saying that trucks are entering the highway, be careful, loads may shift it, kind of thing, would take no time at all, but might accomplish a lot of these issues. Or if you see something in the road, call this number instead of 911, kind of thing. But the first cautionary note would make you hesitate and look, and then somewhere to contact thing, and that sign could be probably coordinated if you don't have the money.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of a teaming that we can do when we know who to call and what to do. And as a new guy, I'm making sure my guys understand who to call. I mean, our security forces folks patrol 94 as far as from a weather perspective, road conditions, those kinds of things. Folks who drive into the base are very good about reporting, hey, something's in the road, or they'll tell us. The question is I want to make sure we're closing the loop with the city, that we understand exactly, is it the state or the city, who we call, how we make that happen, and how we communicate. Because I think that's really the biggest concern here, is making sure we're communicating and working together as a team. So again, it's not really necessarily the manpower that needs to be out there. And I will check on the signs. Bill had mentioned that to me. Colonel LaCory had mentioned that. And I need to close with my team to see if they got a legal answer on. We could put those out there for you.
Very good. Thank you. We appreciate that. And I'll exchange some information with you to follow up with this. Other concerns, questions?
You're going to do the saturation campaign first,
That
and
was-
then put up the signs telling people how fast they're going.
Saturation campaign was going to be head up by
After we collect the revenue.
by Commissioner. Yeah, they're going to go ahead and coordinate that effort, the county commissioners, and then CDOT, as we will provide the information, the raising awareness campaign, safety campaign, that we will provide, as well as increased number of visits, as maintaining and all that effort, and then we'll work with our partners to see if we can improve this situation there.
Any other questions while we have Son up here? No? Well, great job.
Well, thank
filled
you.
in very admirably for Ken.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we can go up to Section 6, the action items, and 6A is fiscal year 2016, 2019 tip.
Scott's coming up. Scott's coming up.
There we go.
I don't know if the
thought
board
I saw
is-
somebody back there.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Scott Phillips, PPACG, here today to request the board's adoption and approval of the 2016 through 2019 tip for the PPACG region. It's been recommended for approval by both the technical and citizens advisory committees. This tip extends the 2013 through 2018 tip by 1 year, incorporating the 2019 programming year into the tip. No new projects have been incorporated into this tip. This was just an advancement adding into the 2019 year. Funding for the 2019 year was used to supplement funding needs for existing projects in the tip that have seen project costs increase due to inflationary and/or market conditions. As mentioned in the staff report, there were some formula issues. Those have been corrected. And again, we're here to request the approval by the board for the 2016 through 2019 tip.
As presented to the TAC.
As presented to the TAC and CAC, correct.
Yeah, and tagging on one of the things, and the public comment period ended Monday. And so the public comments to date are primarily from CDOT. So there's a list of those. So we're working on articulating the details of the proposed tip amendment, not to just put it in this document and not go through your committee structure and then back to the board, we as staff would like to know the details as well. So we think next month you'll probably get a tip amendment that will show all the different changes from what we call public comments from CDOT that reconcile things and move some things around. The one specific add-on today, and I think, Scott, you may be mentioning this in a second, congestion relief line item. I think CDOT would like to have that removed today with your approval of the TIP document. And it's an old funding category. It has $3 million over 5-6 years. It doesn't exist anymore. That one we think is okay to remove. The other changes are in the dozens, and we as a staff aren't comfortable throwing that on the table and trying to explain that in 2 hours or less. We'd rather have it come vetted through your committees and then have TIP Amendment 1 either next month or in August, depending on CDOT's timeline and our discussions with them. So we can give you precise numbers by the categories. And as Scott says, some of the arithmetic, we just want to make sure we understand it. And I think no projects or programs will be delayed with the amendment coming in a month or two, and everything should be still on track. So our recommendation is the same as the committee's, is to recommend approval.
Recognizing the congestion mitigation change?
Yeah, the category, Scott, is it congestion relief?
It's congestion relief.
That's the one funding category. It's been a holdover for years. We haven't really applied the money. I don't believe the category exists. But again, it's in the scope of $100 million a year. Go over 6 years, that's $600 million or $500 million, the total tip. We're okay recommending today that one line item be removed with your approval.
And there was, what was in that old category? How much was it?
I think, I don't know if Scott has the number. I think it was, I remember about $3.2 million over 5 years.
What was identified for the 16-17 year? There was no funding identified any years after that. Was $688,000 per year. Okay. So that's 1.3 million. So
even less.
Around that. So that's
3
about
years, right? 2 or 2.
2 years. Yeah.
Yes, Jennifer from the
Sorry,
TAC.
Jennifer Irvin. Just question, if we do that, does that still leave the program fiscally constrained?
Yeah, the board in its recommendation determines air quality conformity, fiscal constraint of all the 30 funding categories from RTA, local governments, metropolitan, Mountain Metro Transit, all the local money. So the whole tip is fiscally constrained. CDOT's line items, that's what we're talking about. There may be some changes, but we don't have a letter from CDOT articulating exactly what those changes will be. So the overall tip you will be determining is fiscally constrained today. And as we like to do almost every month, we do a tip amendment, and we recertify that air quality is met, public process is met, and fiscal constraint is met. So we know the tip is going to change every month because sometimes money changes, reconciliations happen, project budgets go up. So if you want fiscal constraint by the day, I don't even think the federal government can do that, or CDOT, or anyone else.
We're the fiscally constrainers.
You are the determiners of fiscal constraint based on recommendation from your board, and certainly CDOT sits on the committees and sit on this board as well. But as legislature and federal government changes budget numbers, the tip numbers could change daily, but we don't track it daily.
So does anybody on the board have any questions? There's kind of a lot going on here, and we're just going to stick to our guns. I mean, basically, we added a year onto the tip, no real changes other than to backfill monies needed for existing projects. During the public comment period, CDOT has submitted some pretty lengthy comments that staff is still working on. And I think at one time they were thinking, well, it would be great if board could just go ahead and adopt some of these changes. But since the TAC, the CAC haven't looked at them, I'm not personally in favor of moving ahead without their agreement. So I think we'll stick to our process that has worked so well for us and just move forward. And as some of these proposed funding changes with some CDOT come forward in a more formal fashion, we'll take them up in the amendment process. Is that a fair summary?
Fair summary.
Yes.
I'm wondering if Rob, would be okay to set the congestion relief removal line item, just to include as a tip amendment rather than including that change today?
Yeah, my understanding is that I think CDOT would prefer that line item come out. If not, it would go to the tip amendment. But I know CDOT staff is in the room. If they have a burning desire to remove that, again, it's my understanding from the last 2 days that it would be good to have that category removed. But if not, now would be the time to recommend if it's okay to table that one line item.
Kathleen, do you have some light to shed on this?
Kathleen Krager, City of Colorado Springs Transportation Manager. I just want to request that we bring the tip in July, not even if possible, that we bring the tip in July, because any further will delay the Powers Widening project. And I just don't think we want to delay that into another season, so.
Yeah,
I was going to kind of say something along that line here. We need to approve it because we have monies that would stop projects, so we need to, I think, move it forward and come back with the fully staffed tip amendment on a regular schedule.
I think staff would concur, and certainly with what Kathleen said. We don't want any projects to be delayed, but we think approving today meets the requirement from the feds, from the state. Originally, we were thinking October, November for this tip to be approved. It got accelerated on us. We accelerated as fast as we could through the committees. We don't want to roll over into the next state fiscal year, which is July 1. And so that's the acceleration. As we've talked about, it's the same 6-year transportation improvement program. We just brought in the new fiscal year money to take care of any cost overruns. And so with that, we think it'll be great to be approved. All the projects, including Powers Widening, continue to go. It was way back last month this board approved the additional money for that. Tip amendment of 28 in a 2-year document. So again, our recommendation is delete the line item unless CDOT says they are okay with that going to tip amendment 1, and then bring all those details. Again, we want CDOT to work with us to officially submit that. We don't have the exact numbers, so we don't want to try to make that up because we don't want to speak on behalf of CDOT, and they can speak on their own behalf.
Hello.
Hi.
Come on up.
Hi, I'm Jamie Collins. I work at CDOT in headquarters in our Division of Accounting and Finance. I also manage the STIP, which we incorporate your tip into our STIP. I think we would be fine as an agency if we brought all the changes forward together in one amendment next month, and you approved the tip as it is today.
Well, that certainly makes it
Takes
easier.
care of that.
That's way too easy.
Thank you.
Way too easy.
Any other questions or comments?
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Passes. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was Scott's first board meeting.
Good. I was thinking I
Thank
was
you.
like losing my memory. I'm like,
We were just seeing if anyone was wondering.
So thank you for.
Yeah, he's not from Pueblo Cog. He's from us.
All right, item 6B is PPACG fiscal year 2015 budget amendment. Hello, Beverly.
Good morning. Good morning. As you know, the federal and state budget law requires government entities to amend their budgets for additional funding and the related expenditures. We were not aware of the funding opportunities outlined in the first half of the board memo in November 2014 when our current 2015 budget was approved. The additional staffing outlined in the second half of my memo is necessary to create the plans or administer the services required for receiving the additional funding, grant funding. And the positions created are tied to the new grants and will go away when or if that particular funding ends. We are not requesting an increase in member dues for 2014, And if you approve this amendment today, I have a budget resolution prepared for the board chair and treasurer to sign. Are there any questions?
So this is good news. We have
Yes.
more money. And so you're just telling us how we're going to amend the budget to capture that.
Correct. And a couple of these items for increased funding were reported to the board over the last couple months.
Any questions for Beverly? Board inclined to move on this item?
Move approval. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And I'm not sure if I want to point this out, but you have attached a member government financial benefit report to this. So if you're interested in how your particular entity is leveraging their dues, it's revealed there in the final column. But realize, too, that outlier on Manitou Springs, because we had a lot of flooding issues, a lot of grant monies, and it's really just kind of an exceptional number. But
Has nothing to do with you being chair?
no, nothing. It precedes my term as chair, so.
That's Congress.
All right.
That's Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Welcome back, Karen.
Thank you.
We heard you had some very important conference calls you had to take care of. Hassan did a great job in your absence. I think we got through everything that was CDOT related, but I didn't know if there's anything in particular you wanted to bring up or discuss. Nothing?
Have we gotten to the STIP reconciliation?
We approved the
I
tip.
think we just approved the change.
We approved it, and your STIP manager came up and told us it was okay to do so. So
Okay.
we followed her lead.
Okay, I just didn't know if we'd gone through that, so that was
We
the
did.
only thing. And just, there's one thing I found out on the call too, we have a Office of Emergency Management, but there's this big storm that's coming, this Friday, Thursday, Friday.
The remnants of that Blanca, Hurricane Blanca,
Yeah.
maybe finally
Yeah.
reaching
Yeah.
us, yeah.
So just to be aware of that.
It's good to know.
Hail.
Not good
flood,
news, but.
high water.
And we did have a very vigorous and helpful discussion about State Highway 94 and some of the safety measures that everybody, all the principals are working on together. So that was, I thought, really helpful. Thank you. So Section 7 is our information items, and so we have our Moving Forward 2040 Regional Transportation Plan chapters.
Good morning, Craig Casper, Transportation Director. We have 6 chapters formatted on the web for your initial preliminary draft review. They will be going, our mail out for the TAC is tomorrow. We should have a 7th, the 7 chapters that are there now are you see the ones listed, plus the health chapter is also formatted. The implementation chapter is is the next up to get formatted. We are going to put the remaining 8 chapters up in an unformatted, in a Word, or just the basic layout for review, and then we'll move it into our formatted layout over the course of the next couple weeks. But like I said, the mail out for the TAC is tomorrow, and by then we will have all the chapters formatted or unformatted up on that web link for you to begin reviewing, because we don't want to drop 700 pages on you all at once. So.
Refresh my memory, when are we looking to adopt and approve this?
We're released for public comment in July, and we're looking August or September. I think it's September now is our approval, which still gets us before the federal fiscal year. So we're good.
And I would urge everybody to go ahead and start reading into these. It is a lengthy, long document that you really don't want to be trying to scramble the 2 days before the approval meeting to try and catch up with. So if you have a little free time, a little fascinating reading, and it's a great opportunity.
Excellent to read right before bed.
Yeah.
The dangers, of course, falling asleep before you actually get to
Where you get to the end of the first page. Read the last page. Rob, please.
Yeah, I think for the board's remembrance, Craig says very draft chapters. Remember the guts, the key components of the chapters you've all approved as board memos. So when you see the resource allocation memo, which we brought to you, boy, Craig, help me remember, a year ago, a small area forecast you got 2 or 3 years ago, the list of projects, unconstrained, constrained, all that's been in the form of your packet in board memos. So to meet all the federal requirements and the infographics to make it more readable, that's what Craig talks about, the graphs and the information in the plan chapters really are built off your memos. So those are the text. We'll add the graphics. We'll make them better graphics called infographics. So don't worry about it. When you hear 700 pages to read in the next 30 days, if you've read your board packet over the last 2 years, you've read it. And you're just going to see it in a different format. No worries, we didn't change the list of projects. They're all still there. We didn't sneak any others in, some bypass, behind the Air Force Academy. That's our long-range plan up to Woodland Park. So I haven't shown Brad that one yet. That's a good road. You'll appreciate it. That was in our 1972 plan?
71, 72, 73.
Look for it.
It was a big
That
push
was a nice road.
to connect Monument to
And
Woodland
so
Park.
I thought I'd add that to the board, so we're not dropping 700 pages on our committees or this board. You've seen it before and approved them before. And we'll give you an update probably next month of, here's all the approvals you've done in the last 2.5 years. So it makes sense, and it just takes so long to do it. But I know you all remember, the small area forecast discussion from a couple years ago. And so anyway, look for those, and that data should look familiar.
Questions or comments? Thanks, Craig.
Yep.
You going to stick around for the next item?
Yes, I am.
All right, good. So that's the 2016-17 Unified Planning Work Program.
Yeah, the three major products that an MPO does are the TIP, the plan, and the UPWP, the Unified Planning Work Program. We're doing all of them at the same time. It's just awesome. The UPWP is a list of all the transportation planning efforts that will go on in our region over 2 years, ours, transits, CDOTs, all compiled into one so that we make sure to coordinate them. It also acts as sort of our scope of work for PPACG staff. We are in the process of putting this together. We expect next month you'll be getting it in draft form. We'll be going to the TAC hopefully tomorrow. I'm still working on some of the dollar numbers. But just information item, let you know that next month you should be seeing the UPWP. So, major efforts in the next 2 years, planning efforts, are updating our travel model, updating our small area forecast. Those are the two really big ones. By the way, we'll be starting our small area forecast in the foreseeable future, so for the next plan.
It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, right? It never
Exactly.
ends.
We got to one end, we're going back to the other.
You think you're done, and it's time to start over, huh?
Yep.
And then, if I read correctly, that for every $17 of our dues, it pulls down $83 in federal match.
Exactly. So, pretty good return. And yesterday, I filled out a form for AMPO, the Association of MPOs. There's a push with renewal of MAP 21 to actually eliminate the matching requirements for CPG money, the monies that PPACG uses, to zero that out. Because a lot of places are having a hard time making that match. So, not that I'm going to hold my breath at all, but that is actually a big push from NARC, AMPO, to do that. So
Well, that would just free up more of our dollars to
Exactly.
bring down even other grant monies in
Exactly.
other areas.
Yep.
So, any questions for Craig? This one?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So item 7C is the Strategic Highway Research Project 2 overview.
Good morning again. I'll be providing the board with a brief overview of the State Highway Research Project. This project is a cooperative effort between the environmental program here at PPACG and the Transportation Department at PPACG. So I can just go ahead and, there we go. PPACG received an initial SHARP 2 grant in 2010 to conduct a pilot test of the TCAP, which is the Transportation for Communities Advancing Projects through Partnerships. Really what this was a effort to kind of work with stakeholders, federal, state, and local agencies, cooperatively address environmental needs as we move forward with the 2035 transportation plan. And TCAP has specific steps that you take in along the way. So we went ahead and went through that process, and that really led us to a second grant, the SHARP 2 grant that we received in 2013. The contract was signed. We started working on this in 2014. And this was to develop a regional mitigation plan, to conduct an impact analysis based upon the projects included in the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, to determine what the mitigation needs would be based upon the impacts to those projects, to go ahead and quantify those needs in a spreadsheet form, to go ahead and determine the exact acreage and what the priorities would be for moving through the future, and to develop a Google Earth web-based platform. This is really a user-friendly tool for the public that creates a dynamic map that people can go ahead and use to interface the actual 2040 projects with the mapping that was done of the conservation areas and other mapping from our project partners. And lastly, to develop a regional mitigation plan, which will be an appendix to the regional transportation plan. Before we started, we developed a advisory committee, which helped really guide this process. This consisted of state, federal, and local agencies. The role of the advisory committee was to go ahead and identify potential project opportunities. That is, kind of what are all the project sponsors doing. So in addition to the mapping that we were doing, we were collecting information from Rocky Mountain Field Institute, Fountain Creek Watershed Flood Control District, the Land Trust, and other agencies, Fort Carson, regarding different projects they're going on in their area to see where there might be some potential collaboration. And the advisory group also went ahead and looked at kind of what are the priorities for the area. That is, where should we spend the most time? And that was largely based upon the impacts, and to also look at potential regulatory and non-regulatory hurdles in moving forward with this process. The committee met about every other month from 2014 when the project started, and the project is anticipated to be completed by the end of July. The purpose of the project, like I mentioned, was to develop screening tables that show the risk associated with the transportation projects based upon the impacts that the mapping shows, to provide a framework to collaboratively work with the SHARP 2 committee partners and other partners on mitigation needs, to look at important habitats that we can go ahead and preserve and protect, but also connect and link, to streamline the permitting process. Oftentimes, when you do transportation projects, the permitting issues sometimes creep up on you, and it delays a project. So really, with the SHARP 2 grant that we received in 2010, and this one, we're trying to get ahead of the curve, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, the EPA, all these agencies, to identify what the permitting needs will be for these projects. And in addition, to go ahead and not just work on a project-by-project basis, but to go ahead and identify the needs collectively for all the projects in the 24 transportation plan, so you just aren't looking at each individual projects. To consider both on-site and off-site mitigation opportunities. Sometimes you have a project where there'll be an impact to an area, but there might be better opportunities kind of off-site, not associated with that specific transportation project, and that's where you really might want to focus your efforts. In moving forward, we went ahead and developed a database consisting of transportation data projects included in the 2040 transportation plan, mitigation data, kind of wildlife, plants, and habitats. And these were placed into different bins. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. And external project data. We've been collecting data, as I mentioned, from our partner agencies, such as Fort Carson, Rocky Mountain Field Institute, cities and counties, and other agencies, trying to see if projects that other agencies are working on are located in similar areas where there might be mitigation impacts to the transportation projects. The mitigation targets were actually classified into 3 different bins. Those in bin 1, which are the federally listed candidate species. So this would be your Preble's meadow jumping mouse. This would be your spotted owl, darter, greenback cutthroat trout, Gunnison prairie dog. These are kind of species that are required to be federally mitigated. In bin 2 and bin 3, those are critically imperiled and imperiled species. And the difference is kind of based upon where those species, how are located, and how many species are found in a certain area. Oftentimes, there are not requirements to go ahead and mitigate for these types of species in bin 2 and bin 3, but by identifying them and working with the project sponsors and to try to get grants, we're really hoping to go ahead and get some additional funding to go ahead and mitigate for these other target species. And like I mentioned, the external project data from the advisory committee members. This is a table that shows, you see, 9 of the 52 projects where there were impacts. It shows the project ID, project name. Again, this is just 9 of the 52 projects to give you an idea of what the spreadsheet looks like. The actual impact acres compared to the actual total project acres. So the percent in the 5th column there, the percent of project creating the impact. And bin 1, bin 2, and bin 3, and I kind of went through the differences in those bins. The impact importance on the last column there, that's a formula based upon the species that are impacted, but also the total acreage that's impacted. A slightly higher weight is given based upon the actual amount of acreage that's impacted. So that all plugs into calculate the impact importance. But you can kind of go ahead and tweak that formula too. If the species are you want to give a little higher benefit to certain species. Now I'm going to go into kind of some of the project impact mapping results. Out of the over 300 projects in the regional transportation plan, there were actually 200 that showed a physical footprint of disturbance. That is, could be weeds, erosion, dust. These were assigned a buffer. So for each one of those 300 projects, we went through and assigned a buffer of 0, 1, or 2. A buffer of 0 meant essentially that there was no buffer assigned. These were projects for planning studies, acquisition, operation, maintenance. And then there were also buffers assigned for 1, which corresponded to a 100-foot buffer, and for kind of some of the major construction projects, a 2, which had a 360-foot buffer. So out of those initial over 300 projects, there were 200 that had a kind of a physical footprint disturbance. 148 of those did not overlap with the conservation targets. That is, many of the conservation targets in bin 1, bin 2, or bin 52 of those overlapped with the conservation targets. That is, there were impacts to either one or more of those targets. And in that table that I showed you previously, those were kind of 9 of the 52 projects. There were 137 mitigation targets impacted and 34 different species impacted. This just shows that, if you can read it, the number of species identified in the project boundaries. The boundaries for this project were extended a little bit past the MPO to also include some of the watershed boundaries. That there were impacts to species just from the transportation projects, but there are also species identified in the project boundaries but were not impacted by the regional transportation plan. This map right here shows the projects that were just impacted by the federally listed species. So those are the species that I mentioned, such as the spotted owl, the mouse, the darter, and the cutthroat, where there will actually be mitigation requirements for these projects. Those are identified in the red, and the other projects are identified in the as purple. This project right here just shows a map of all the transportation projects that were impacted. So these are the 52 projects. This shows a kind of a sliding scale based upon conservation of value from high to low. So you can kind of see where some of the projects are proposed to be built in a slightly higher conservation value area. Those projects would probably have a slightly higher ranking or weighting in that one table that I showed that went ahead and looked at the species and the impacted acres. This shows the mitigation targets impacted by the projects. Again, I think there was like 137 or so targets. So the yellow there shows that the projects that impacted one target. The orange shows the projects that impacted 2 targets. And the purple or burgundy show the ones that impacted 3 or more targets. So, you can see how there's some projects that impacted more targets than others. As I mentioned, there's a really neat tool that the GIS staff is developing in Google Earth, and this is a dynamic map, really, that will be on our website, that will be going out with the public in the public meetings that show the transportation projects, all the data that we've collected there on the right-hand side. Under basin data sets, those are your watershed boundaries for Fountain Creek Watershed, Chico Creek Watershed, project data, 2040 transportation plan. Data that we have from the green infrastructure study that was done 3 or 4 years ago that was collected based upon the working groups that met to identify some of the critical areas. EPA data looking at kind of the GAP project data, which took a look at land use. Army Corps of Engineers Watershed Management Plan, Fountain Creek Corridor Restoration Plan. These are plans that the Fountain Creek Watershed District is using in looking at different projects. And base map data. This has everything from your hydrology, floodplains, also taking a look at rainfall, and data that we're getting from other agencies and organizations. What's nice about this is, you can click on what data you want to show, and it kind of shows how all the different projects might overlap with each other. So how you might get the most bang for your buck. This is just an example of you can go ahead and click on a project to bring up the information about the project and the impacts. Some of the benefits of using this framework are that it provides a framework to prioritize projects and the impacts from an environmental and economic and community perspective to kind of look at all the different issues, allows for better collaboration, improved understanding, increased trust, getting the agencies together ahead of time to go ahead and look at the issues instead of waiting until the last minute. And provides a structure to identify and address complex issues, because the hope is to actually use this framework for, also looking at projects in the next plan, in the 2045 plan, because, there'll be kind of projects, some of the projects will be the same, but this will be a good, useful tool in moving forward and looking at other projects. Next steps, to present the mitigation impact results as part of the public meetings that will be held, to go ahead and complete the Regional Advancement Mitigation Plan. Colorado Natural Heritage Program and NatureServe are two of the consultants that are working on that advanced mitigation plan that were hired as part of this project. Assess the potential for off-site mitigation, that is, where are the areas kind of off-site, not associated with the transportation projects, where there might be mitigation opportunities, and investigate the potential opportunities to partnership with other organizations and try to get some grants and funding. With that, are there any questions?
I have one.
Sure.
So I certainly see how this could facilitate and really advance transportation projects, having this plan. Is it also the intent that it would help us make choices on which projects to advance or to fund, in the sense that one has a really high mitigation cost associated with it? Is that the intent here also?
To be honest, I doubt how much the mitigation needs will drive the transportation projects, but certainly it will be used to go ahead and take a look at kind of what mitigation opportunities will result as a part of funding that project. Because in the funding estimates, they don't include kind of the mitigation cost associated with those projects. So this will kind of start to get us discussing what those costs are, and also collaboration with kind of other agencies regarding those mitigation opportunities.
Yeah, I think where it helps probably for the board is, as you think about projects and timelines, to get through the NEPA process. This is kind of a precursor. It gives you kind of a heads up to what environmental issues you're going to have to face and mitigate with the project. Now, environmental clearances take anywhere from 18 months to, I think we have the record, Craig, the longest environmental assessment in federal highway history was done here, 7 years plus?
A little over 10 years.
Oh, a little over 10 years. And so if you have to wait on a project clearance for 10 years, what's the cost of that $100 million project just done over 10 years? So then it gets into project selection, where it's like, wow, that $100 million is now $200 million because the mitigation. And so this effort, and again, we got federal dollars to research this, and Rich and Craig and the crew have done a great job. This lays the foundation to better understand what we're getting ourselves into. It's another kudos for, if you can fund it locally, then you may avoid some of this. Not that you're going to plow under every Prebbles, Meadow, Jumping Mouse habitat, but if you're using local dollars, you don't have a 2 to 10 year environmental clearance stage. I mean, it's hard enough to get money for projects, but if then you do that. So I think this lays the groundwork to give everyone a sense of how can you address it, whether you're putting large areas aside or just individuals. So this gives, I think, everyone who does projects with federal funds a better understanding.
And I guess one thing that I'm kind of excited about for this project is we're seeing what other agencies' efforts are going on related mitigation that they have to do. I think it could be possible that we can then look at, okay, transportation, we need to do X type of mitigation for our projects. Let's add on to their projects, do a bigger project, and get some cost efficiencies there, get something that helps us more for this at the same cost, or does the same at less cost, and we'll be able to balance that. So that's what I'm looking for. So.
You guys are always appreciated now more than ever. This is pretty detailed stuff that you're going through here, and the product will be good.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Just remind them more, this type of technology integration is one of the reasons why Pikes Peak was recognized nationally last year as the best NGO in the country. So kudos, excellent work.
And section D is the statewide transportation advisory committee agenda discussion.
Let's start just a quick update. What was covered at the last meeting, it was held on May 29th at 9 a.m. Craig, you want to come right in?
No, you were both there too, so I'm just here in case there's something else comes up.
Let me just
So.
cover a couple of things and then you can jump in. Probably the biggest discussion during the meeting was the discussion of the highway freight plan, which is developed largely without NPO and local input. There was some discussion about why that we ought to be involved in that process. The next step in that freight plan is to integrate the highway plan with the rail and airport plans, and that's created a integrated freight plan. The Mustang system is still on schedule to make its first trip on July 13th. That's wide opening. They are the two success runs around the state. I'm going to thank James for being our statewide step manager, and I see she's left the room, so maybe other folks see I can pass on.
She took them.
And then was the discussion from the Transportation Commission that there are funds being projected for Greenville, creating a new CDOT headquarters and a new Region 2 headquarters. I don't know. We're really early on in that process, but there is some funding now being allocated towards that research and design. So, next ACT meeting is June 26th, for CDOT headquarters.
I have another meeting sort of related. The Transportation and Environmental Resource Council meets tomorrow, and it's the MPOs, the CDOT, and all the state and federal resource agencies, so EPA, Fish and Wildlife Service, BLM, CDPHE. So we have that meeting tomorrow morning. So thank you.
Here, any member entity announcements? Anybody have anything they want to announce?
I can go last. Well, they want to get out. Follow up. One other thing, I didn't want to take too much time in my director's report, but when we met with U.S. Secretary of Transportation Fox, very interesting comment he made nationally Monday. He is seeing nationally the phenomenon that we experience here with the Pikes Peak RTA. The way he characterized it, for those states, localities that increase a gas tax or sales tax, property tax for transportation, he's hearing around the country that there apparently the federal funds apparently don't seem to be as needed in those areas. Like if you raise your own local money, then the federal money seems, and state money seem to go elsewhere. With a comment, and it's been said around this table, of you have enough money. You don't need as much of the federal state money. You've raised your own money. So as he put it, sometimes you think you took a step forward, and all of a sudden you have that parachute dragging you backwards saying, wait a minute, we thought we were going to go $100 million ahead, but now we find ourselves back to even. So we went through you think nationally, huge effort to raise gas tax or property tax or sales tax to diminish the money that you thought you were getting really is a frustration that he's seeing around the country. So when he brought that up, it was a nice segue into transportation authorities seem to have the same thing. So he's looking at it, and where it goes, who knows. But again, having a discussion with him is always good to know about what he's hearing nationally. So I wanted to add that because I know locally we have that phenomenon or appearance of that phenomenon.
It's frustrating because it's really backwards, really, in the sense that they should be incentivized rewarding those jurisdictions
Yes.
for stepping forward and stepping up to the plate. Sometimes it appears the opposite is. I don't know that that's actually what's occurring, but the perception is certainly.
Right. And so, yeah, we'll see how that discussion works into the new federal law, but he's certainly aware of it around the country. So we'll see how it plays out.
So I was trying to determine whether I need to comment or not, but I would like to caution the board of saying there's a perception of that, because in the Pikes Peak area, it's actually been the opposite. You guys have gotten a lot more money because you've been able to match funds. So for ramp, for example, you've gotten a very big share of the ramp funds because you were able to use some of your RTA funds to match it. Also for RPP, you guys get $4 million of our $10 million, and that's not impacted at all by whether you get RTA funds or not. That's based on lane miles and truck and other decision factors. Also, you have gotten in this first 4 years, $24 million for the first 4 years. So you've gotten way more than your share of the RPP funds for the region. Again, just in the first 4 years, I've worked out a plan that balances that out over 10 years. So I just want to let you know, as region director, I am making sure that does not happen, that you guys keep getting your fair share of money from the state and from the feds as the commission gives it out. So just be careful of the perception versus what do the numbers show. And want to make sure that that's not my intent, and I haven't seen it happen here.
Thank you for
So.
that. Old habits are hard to break. I'm circle around comes out of my mouth before I even had a chance to think it through, so thank you for clarifying. Anything else? Any other member?
You probably saw announced in the papers that Cripple Creek Mine has announced a sale of assets from Shante Gold, an African-based country, to Newmont Mining, a Colorado-based company. It's an $850 million contemplated transaction, lots of regulatory hurdles to go through, but we expect that sale transaction to be completed sometime in third quarter, starting in the last September timeframe. The reason it's important because several mineral impact severance taxes come from it. It's a $500 million revenue generated for the state of Colorado. That's revenue to the mine, but we see that as no disruption to local economy, maybe even a boost. So just make me aware.
Congratulations.
I think so.
I know. Well, that's good for telling.
It is.
Any other announcements? Our next meeting is
July 8th.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, it's the camouflage, sir.
So completely a left turn from some of these other conversations. Just wanted to say on behalf of the other military installations, as you hear every time, it's just a privilege for us to be a part of this community. And most recently, we had an opportunity. We just want to thank as well as PPACG for hosting a town hall last week where we had an opportunity to support and provide some insight to the community that attended about the airmanship program. I think you've probably heard about that. It's something that we've had since the Academy opened in 1954. What was interesting to me were a couple of just basic facts that were shared. First of all, we learned that the community's planning, I think there's about 600,000+ folks in the area in general, and that you're looking to go upwards over 1 million by about 2040. And so that's a big, significant change, and we want to be a part of that discussion so that we can continue to be good news with that. Also heard or saw a history presentation provided by the town that kind of showed the Air Force Academy way up in the Northwest and Colorado Springs proper in the 1950s all the way, and you just watch things migrate up. And so all of a sudden the present situation we have with neighbors on all sides of our boundary, with the exception of the mountains, unless there's some kind of road you're talking about that might circle that.
Not currently.
That was pretty interesting. And then in terms of money, we were able to share that we have about a $950+ million economic impact on an annual basis in the area. So just how we all work together with that. Just want to thank you for putting that together and look forward to supporting further efforts in that regard. And also appreciate observing that in your budget you put money towards the joint land use study, and we look forward to continuing to support that as you move forward. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments, announcements? If not, our next meeting is July 8th.
July 8th.
Thank you all very much. And we did get out for 11, so our state